Let's begin with the foundations. Welcome to another lecture, where we interrogate the record and try not to spill tea on the footnotes. Today we consider Guillermo Ochoa, commonly known as Memo, the Mexican goalkeeper whose international performances have been to some extent statistically improbable and narratively unforgettable. I am Alexei. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, I'm Priyanka. Thank you for listening with us today. I am, excited to learn how one goalkeeper can shape so many tournaments, and also how we should think about his club years versus the national team story.
To frame our discussion, it is important to understand terms and roles. A goalkeeper is essentially the final line of defense. He commands the penalty area, organizes the back line, and specializes in shot stopping, where reflex time, positioning, and hand shape must be nearly automatic. A clean sheet is simply the happy event of conceding 0 goals. A cap is an official appearance for the national team, and a loan is a temporary club move designed to secure minutes when competition for places is intense. Ochoa, at 1.85 meters, has long arms and excellent spring. He is not primarily a high-line sweeper-keeper, but he excels at reflex saves, penalty scenarios, and match management under heavy fire.
So, I guess we can start by thinking about this distinction you just made. When you say he is not a classic sweeper keeper, you mean he is less about racing out to intercept long balls and more about the compact reaction saves on his line, right? And then, how does that connect to his reputation in tournaments?
Precisely. Tournament football compresses risk. National teams often defend deeper. The shot quality may be higher because opponents are elite, yet the volume can be controlled by structure. In this context, Ochoa's reaction profile is amplified. We observed this in Mexico's 0-0 draw against Brazil in 2014 and in the 2022 penalty save against Robert Lewandowski. Moments where one intervention reframes the expected value of an entire match. His skill set is, if you will, built for these margins.
Building on that, what are the stakes? Like, for Mexico and for the wider region?
For Mexico, Ochoa is both continuity and iconography. He has been a senior international since 2005. As of June 2026, he has 153 caps, and he has been named to 6 World Cup squads, which ties the global men's benchmark. He holds a record 6 Gold Cup titles, situating him at the apex of regional success. His impact goes beyond medals. He anchors defensive identity, stabilizes young back fours, and crucially, corrects a historical misunderstanding. When his club teams conceded large totals, it was often because he faced extraordinary shot volumes, as at Ajaccio and Granada, where he simultaneously led in saves and was voted Player of the Season by supporters. Raw goals against can be a misleading statistic when the denominator is chaos.
That makes me wonder. Can we go through a few anchor points, the basic history, so we have a timeline in mind before we get to the bigger questions?
Let's start with the history. Born in July 1985 in Guadalajara, he entered Club America's academy by the mid-1990s, debuting for the first team at age 18 in early 2004. By 2005, he had a league title with America. In 2006, he won the CONCACAF Champions Cup. In 2007, he secured back-to-back domestic Golden Glove recognition across the split seasons, and remarkably was named a Ballon d'Or candidate in October while still in Mexico, one of very few not then in Europe. This is a significant and rather surprising international validation. Internationally, he debuted for Mexico in December 2005. He was a squad member at the 2006 World Cup. and by 2007, he had delivered strong Copa America matches against Brazil and Chile, culminating in third place. Moving on to 2011, there was the clenbuterol episode at the Gold Cup. He and others were withdrawn mid-tournament, but the federation later identified contaminated meat. WADA initially appealed and then withdrew after reviewing the complete file in October. There were no sanctions, and his eligibility remained intact. He then joined Ajaccio in Ligue 1, where he faced a firestorm of shots, yet was twice the supporters' player of the season. A similar pattern repeated at Granada on loan in 2016-17, where he set a La Liga record for goals conceded across a relegation season and simultaneously led Europe's top 5 leagues in saves, again earning the fans' top award. We observe across contexts that supporters watching each week often calibrate value differently than an abstract column of goals allowed. This perspective helps explain why his tournament reputation resonates so strongly.
And then the World Cup moments. 2014 against Brazil and 2022 against Poland. Those are the images most people remember, right?
Indeed. June 2014 brought a clean sheet in the opener against Cameroon, and shortly after, the heroic draw with hosts Brazil, defined by explosive saves and perfect positioning. In 2022, he stopped Robert Lewandowski from the spot, preserving a result in the group opener. Between those bookends, he played in Belgium with Standard Liège, winning Player of the Season, returned to Club America in 2019, reclaimed his signature number 13 in 2020, became America's all-time clean sheet leader in August 2022, joined Salernitana in Serie A to help secure survival, and win their Player of the Season in 2023. Then added further European chapters in Portugal and Cyprus. In April 2026, he announced that he intends to retire after Mexico's 2026 World Cup campaign, and in June 2026, he was named to that squad, tying the record at 6 World Cups. That is a career with both breadth and narrative punctuation. Before we get to the complexities, a brief personal note. When I watch Ochoa in penalty scenarios, I think of endgames in chess, where one accurate tempo decides the entire position. He often waits, calmly, like a player choosing Zugzwang for the striker. He holds the line, reads the hips, and then commits. It is resilience as technique, or mathematically, patience as optimization under duress.
So yeah, moving on, I think the next thing we should talk about is the big questions. Maybe 3, so we can go deep but still stay organized.
This logically leads us to 3 inquiries. First, a historical question. How should we interpret his 2007 Ballon d'Or nomination while playing in Mexico? Second, a counterfactual. What if he had gone to the Premier League when rumors connected him to Manchester United? Third, an open question. How will his legacy influence the next generation of Mexican goalkeepers? Let us take them in order. Big question 1. Significance of the 2007 Ballon d'Or nomination. Contextually, the list is conservative. Historically, it privileges European leagues. For a Liga MX goalkeeper to appear there at age 22 reflects unusual international regard. He had just won league honors, had continental club success, and was already a Mexico starter in major tournaments. We can infer that evaluators saw traits that translate across leagues: command presence, reflexes, and a high ceiling. It also foreshadows Europe. The nomination is not a trophy, but it is a signal that the global conversation has included you by name.
I am curious about the award itself. How much does a nomination matter relative to winning? Like, is it mostly publicity? Or is there a concrete evaluative weight in the record?
It is worth noting that the Ballon d'Or, administered by France Football, is the preeminent individual award in the sport. The short list is a curated set of the year's elite. To appear on it from outside Europe, as Ochoa did, is an indicator of cross-continental reputation. Historically, it has correlated with subsequent transfers, endorsements, and, importantly, with legacy framing. One does not need to win to be canonized. Nomination places a marker in the archive. Big question 2. What if Ochoa had joined the Premier League? Specifically, the heavily rumored move to Manchester United around 2010-2011. The upside scenario is straightforward. A club at that scale offers Champions League exposure, daily training with world-class attackers, and global media saturation, which often accelerates a player's brand recognition. The downside is equally plain: playing time. At that moment, United had a veteran hierarchy in goal, and then moved for a new long-term starter. In such an environment, a 20-something goalkeeper may wait for years, and minutes are the oxygen of the position.
Can we maybe now look at how that alternate path would have changed his international arc? Would a bench role in England have hurt his World Cup sharpness? Or would the prestige have compensated?
To elaborate, goalkeepers learn by repetition. Timing windows, angles, and even communication with defenders are muscle memory processes. Ochoa consistently chose environments where he would start. Ajaccio, then Granada, then Standard Liège. The workloads were severe, but the minutes were maximal. It is plausible that this underwrote his 2014 and 2022 excellence. The reflexes were battle-tested. The counterfactual Premier League move might have delivered earlier fame and altered endorsement trajectories. But it also might have delayed or diluted the very match rhythm that defined his tournament identity. In simpler terms, the road he took traded spotlight for certainty of practice. And that trade seems, in retrospect, to have paid off at the World Cup stage. Big question 3. How will Ochoa's legacy influence future Mexican goalkeepers? We begin with the objective scaffolding. 6 World Cup squads, an unprecedented Gold Cup medal haul, Olympic bronze as an overage leader in the Tokyo cycle, and the all-time clean sheet record at Club America. The soft power is equally critical. He normalized the number 13 as a badge of identity. He showed that one can move across France, Spain, Belgium, Italy, Portugal, and Cyprus, adapting to distinct defensive cultures, yet preserve a national team standard over 2 decades.
What if we thought about it like this? Younger keepers in Mexico growing up now have a template where a domestic star can also be a global traveller and still come home to set records. Do you think they will also copy his penalty habits? Or is that too individual to transfer?
Speaking of transfer, some elements are idiosyncratic. The micro delays on penalties, the reading of plant foot angles, the late hand extension. Those are personal solutions. But the meta lesson is replicable. Design your career to maximize minutes and decision density. Embrace data that contextualize saves beyond goals conceded. And cultivate leadership even when you are not the formal captain. We will likely see Mexican academies lean further into situational training that mirrors tournament stress. And we should see analysts use expected goals on target shaved by goalkeeper impact to evaluate shot stopping more fairly, a metric where Ochoa's high-volume environments offer a laboratory. For further research, I would recommend comparative studies of save technique under differing defensive blocks, and longitudinal analyses of how international tournament keepers' peak years relate to club minutes in the preceding cycles.
Isn't it interesting how the doping incident you mentioned becomes part of the legacy in a different way? Like a reminder about food systems and risk management rather than a stain. Could that also inform how teams educate players now?
In this context, yes. The 2011 clenbuterol case, resolved without sanctions after WADA withdrew its appeal, has become a cautionary note about environmental risk rather than a verdict on intent. National setups now document sourcing protocols more rigorously, and the episode stands as a policy case study as much as a biographical footnote. It also reminds us that careers are shaped not only by saves, but by systems that surround the athlete.
So, I guess that kind of sums it up. A player whose numbers make more sense when we see the whole picture, and whose biggest moments came when the margins were thinnest.
To summarize, Guillermo Memo Ochoa, born in Guadalajara in 1985, rose with Club America, earned rare global recognition in 2007, and built an international career defined by 6 World Cup squads and defining saves, while his club years across 7 countries demonstrated resilience under extreme workloads. We examined the meaning of that early Ballon d'Or nod. We explored a counterfactual Premier League detour, and we considered how his legacy may shape the methodology and ambitions of future Mexican goalkeepers. For those inclined to study further, I recommend the evolution of goalkeeper evaluation metrics and the training of decision-making under tournament constraints. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Professor, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. Maybe that's something we can come back to later, with more data from the next generation.